Mark Hennessy. I'm the sales manager at Ascensio. This is Dave Lomax, the EMEA technical manager for Barracuda Networks. We can talk offline about what Ascensio do. I think it's quite clear ultimately we're a networking and security company. In recent times surrounding compliance, things like code of connection, PCI DSS, all these wonderful challenges we've been helping councils with. I'm going to hand over to Dave, who's going to provide a presentation on cloud computing. There is time at the end of this session to have a Q&A. If anyone wants to jump in whilst we're doing the presentation to ask questions, feel free to do so.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Terry, can you just switch that light on?
Which one was it?
Yeah. Last one, yeah. Better?
Yeah.
Still seeing? Everyone's definitely in the right room. Okay, thanks for coming. So we're going to talk about cloud computing, some of the sort of misnomers, what people think it is, what people think it is and it isn't, what people think it is and there's other parts to it. I've been in the security industry now for 15 years. Cloud computing is nothing new in essence. It's got a new name. The marketing guys around the world have come up with a new way of calling something that's very similar. But certainly in the public sector, I think the cloud really makes a lot of sense. If we look at it from a simple, what is the cloud? If you Wikipedia, basically cloud computing is a way of providing computation software data access and services to end users, and no one knows where it is or needs to know where it is. And the parallel they use is the electricity grid. The fact we consume electricity, none of us need to know how the grid's put together, how the power is generated, how they break that down into substations, how I eventually get a socket in my house. We don't care, we just want to get the service. So, and that's really what cloud computing is all about, is to make sure, we want to use the most efficient way of getting our service, instead of potentially building an entire service that someone's already got, someone's already designed, and we've got to build another one because it's in our building. Which I thought was really good. When I looked at it on Wikipedia, I thought it's a nice way to explain it to most people. I think the electricity grid makes a lot more sense as a reference. But reality is, for most people, the concept that IT have taken around it is the fact it can save money. If you have to build an entire exchange infrastructure and you've only got 50 mailboxes, probably not very effective, and it's probably costing you a lot more than you necessarily need to spend. If, as I go along, there are any questions, just throw them out to me. It's fine, as Mark said. I think one of the things I hear a lot of is there's a very big confusion about what's hosted and what's the cloud. Okay? The real fact of the matter is the cloud is normally a lot cheaper than hosted. The reason for that being, a hosted service is nothing more than you've got that exchange server put on someone else's building. You still don't have a very lean, mean, massive mail server with everyone using parts of that mail server. You've still got a box somewhere sitting in someone else's rack that you're paying for. Now, yes, that gives you, I guess you could argue, the DR side of things if you're worried about that, the fact that it's split across 2 buildings or it's fire resistant or whatever it may be. But realistically, it's still a box. You have to buy a certain size box, whether you're using 20% of its utilization or 100%. So there's a huge difference between hosted and the cloud. And I have been asked this many times, people saying to me, well, what's the difference between doing hosted solutions for a long time? This isn't new. Most of the cloud-based services are solutions and software that's been engineered together to make it efficient as a collaborative service, so everyone uses that service. You don't build something just for one person. Also, with a hosted service, it can sometimes be nothing more than just a server. You can put whatever you want on it, but they've given you a server. You get internet access and a power supply. Pretty much it. You have to make sure that you provide a platform, you do the general maintenance, you update all the security. You need to be aware of security to how to secure that platform. You then may need to secure the network around that. So again, you have to do a lot more, and in essence, it's just your equipment somewhere else. Okay? Whereas the cloud will provide you that solution, and with the security, and with all the networking access going into it. In a few months' time, if you're suddenly using a lot more bandwidth, you don't suddenly go, okay, we've got a big problem, we've got to buy a bigger pipe. You're in the cloud, it's irrelevant. The service and the infrastructure is built for you. I think the first thing everyone asks is the cloud isn't secure. Interestingly enough, top point I put in here, I was talking to a few analysts about this, the biggest prediction for the next few years for the cloud is PCI compliant payment systems in the cloud. For the simple reason, PCI, DSS and all that is complicated, it requires a lot of security expertise, a lot of people that know a lot about security, a lot of systems that are very secure, are very costly. Why would you want to do that when there's a group of people doing that for you? They have all the security expertise, but because of the economies of scale, it makes a lot more sense to do it that way. So when people talk about the cloud not being secure, absolutely, you have to pick the people you're working with in the cloud. The cloud is not this utopic area where everything's perfect. But if you're working with sensible organisations that have security involved, it makes a lot more sense to leverage their security knowledge than having to build it from the ground up for yourselves. So there's quite a big uptake on that, and I think it's interesting that the predictions by the analysts are security-based things. Application network data security is quite complicated, as I said. The expertise involved in that is very difficult. As someone who's been hiring technical people for a long time, just finding people for me to do it is really hard. Security is quite a niche area. If you went back 10 years, it was even smaller. Now it's becoming much more of an organisation you need to be aware of. People know they need to do it, but finding the right people implementing those security solutions based on the books that are about this thick of what you should do in best practice is expensive. And a lot of the times as well, certainly in the public sector, you probably find I've got a project to do, so I've got to hire a contractor because there's no point hiring a full employee to do this. I'll just get a contractor, and so the cost again is higher. So most organisations are using cloud-based solutions to leverage these securities. It makes things a lot easier, and the cost of maintaining these systems, again, as a skill, is quite high. What's Barracuda know about cloud? Again, I said at the start, we're talking about the cloud systems. We've been doing this for some time now. It wasn't called the cloud, but all of the updates to our systems and all the rest of it, Barracuda as a company, sorry, I should have done that at the start. Barracuda as a company started out making anti-spam appliances. The three founders at the time, Silicon Valley-based company, started up an ASP, had about 2 million mailboxes they had hosted. Problem they had was a lot of spam. They were in effect the hosting provider for the mail. So their bandwidth was costing them money, the server processing power was costing them money, spam was really hurting them. So they were like, okay, well, we need to do something about this. So we'll phone around in the valley to the usual big boys, the Symantec, the McAfees, those kinds of guys. They're doing these tools. We'll see how much it is. The first question out of any salesman's mouth was, how many users we got? Okay, it was like, 2 million. See the salesman's hand rubbing, per user license fee is quite expensive. So what Barracuda's company has done when they were building the original appliances was scrap the per user license fee. Obviously, when you talk about cloud, you have to work on a model similar to that. But the cost of it is nowhere near what it should be. So as a company, they always try to make it more effective. So we made a spam appliance, and it makes sense. It's an internet-based device, in effect. It's for email protection. So, updating its fingerprints for spam, virus definitions was done over the internet. We talk to our servers, get the information, in effect, a cloud service. So, I think a lot of people have been doing these sorts of things, so it's nothing new to us. We're following a similar trend by offering more and more solutions, and now there's more and more services we add into the cloud. So for a company like Barracuda, it's nothing new, it's just given another name. So, people are often saying, what makes a lot of sense to do things in the cloud? What we started off doing was cloud-based threat prevention. It wasn't really called that, I guess, in essence. We had Barracuda Centre and Barracuda Labs that were out there on the internet looking for viruses, looking for known email threats, known spyware attacks, basic threats, and feeding them back to our networks to make sure people were always up to date. So, it wasn't, we never called it the cloud-based, it was our Energize Updates, as we called it. But in essence, that's what it was doing. It was just feeding all this information back. One of the really big areas is cloud storage. The predicted growth from IDC up to 2014, something in the realm just below 13 billion. The amount of money people are putting into cloud storage now is quite big. And there certainly has been, over the last few years, you'll see the cost of doing things in the cloud has hit that point where it's now a lot cheaper to do. When you talk about installing your own huge SAN storage devices, things like that, there's a big cost involved in that. There's servicing to go with it, there's maintenance to go with it, there's having the facilities to even hold something that big. Again, it's another economies of scale. If someone else is providing that storage, it's a lot cheaper for you as end users. You can say, we need to get this amount of storage, How are we going to put it together? What do we need? Oh, it changes every day. Well, you don't have a choice if you have your own equipment. You know, if you need 50 terabytes as a worst case scenario, you've got to buy that. You can't grow to that or shrink to that depending on what you've got. You know, I was talking with an organisation 2 months ago now, and they were ironically a gambling organisation. So during the Grand National and things like that, the amount of transactions that went through the system was huge. So they had all this storage they had to keep for a certain period of time, but it cost them too much to build a massive SAN storage for those 2 or 3 days of the year when the football's on or a big match is on or something else going on to store that data. They have no requirements to hold it for a particularly long period of time, so their data requirements fluctuated. It made a lot more sense for them to use cloud-based storage. And I think in the next few years you'll see things getting more and more cloud-based for that side of things. It's picking the things that make sense to do in the cloud. You know, there's a lot of things that everyone's saying, oh, we'll just, if we put the cloud term around it, it's trendy, it's cool, it'll happen. So, you know, why do you want to use cloud storage? You know, most short or long-term storage within the cloud is put there for 3 of these main reasons. Redundancy, you know, having a massive SAN storage system with hot swappable drives, with multiple power supplies is expensive. Security, most off-site cloud-based storage is replicated and in different geographical locations. You know, you may have bought a very expensive SAN storage system, you may have all the bells and whistles you've got the budget to do it, and you've got this lovely EMC system sitting in your room and you're very proud of that, but if the air conditioning pipe bursts, if the building burns to the ground, you're still no better off. So one of the big business is sort of the redundancy and the security of that. You know that data is going to be secure and ease of access. You know, every building now has an internet-enabled something or other. Everything's got internet access. So if you do, and nowadays the internet speeds are of a level where accessing large files isn't a big thing. You know, people are doing it all the time. You can access that data from anywhere, as opposed to having, you know, your shiny lights flashing in one room, but you don't have a data connection between all your buildings. You don't know how you can actually make this be available on the internet, so it's very difficult to do that. And again, it all comes down to cost. It all comes down to the fact that buying a system, maintaining all of these systems in one place is very, very expensive. And if it's not your key business, it's not what you do day to day, it's just something you have to have. You know, more and more of our solutions, I find we're talking to companies where their business may be frozen food, you know, retail, we sell washing machines or whatever. IT is something they have to do business. And I'm sure it's the same in local government. You know, really you care about what you're doing for the local area. IT is part of that, but it's not really the reason you're doing what you're doing. So again, it's all down to cost. Where storage in the cloud has been big, and certainly in the Barracuda world, is backup. You know, people have been doing backups for a long time. Nothing's really changed in that arena. How many people in their backup strategy, wherever there are, use tape drives? Does anyone know? Most of you? Anyone that's using tape drives like tape drives? No. How many people have got a VCR at home? Got one. Die hard, I like it. Half the people I ever speak to, no one's got a VCR at home.
More videos.
Exactly. They've got Sky Plus, they've got some sort of PVR now. We've moved beyond tapes. Tapes are horrible things. They were horrible when using VCRs. You know, if you had something, you know, the wedding video, the kids' videos, you know, they've been watched so many times, they're starting to fade at the edges and crackle and all the rest of it. Interesting fact that when I first heard it, even I went, it's a bit of marketing fluff. 60% of tape backups fail during a restore. Not completely, maybe, but a certain percentage of it will fail. Now, when you think of the fact that your backup, this is your crown jewels, and if you do have a DR, your site gets burnt to the ground, you go, don't worry, sir, I'm going to run off, put a new mail server up and restore it. If you really knew the 60% chance it would fail, and you wouldn't get all your data back, I guarantee none of you in the room would have thought that was a good option. But everyone did it. The reason everyone did it was just that was the status quo, that was all you could do at the time. Having a very large SAN storage device, having an off-site store was very expensive. And if you're doing backup correct, all of these parts need to be in place. So you've got your servers, you make backup to your disks, you then have to back up to tape. You've got to then maintain your tape drive and tapes. Someone's got to clean the tape machine, someone's got to take those tapes and go through them. We all know that E180 we had for Christmas will only last a couple of years and you've got to throw it away again because you need another tape. They don't last forever, they stretch, they do all kinds of things. There's work involved in maintaining those tapes, rotating those tapes, cleaning them out. And then if you do business really well, You send it off in a truck and you get to put somewhere nice and safe where if your site burns to the ground, the tape you've got in the office or the tape that's been sent somewhere else is fine, you've got it in a bunker somewhere. So that's doing it right. Does everyone who knows about the backup in their organisation, does everyone think they're doing that bit right? Everyone's got all that. That's good, because a lot of people forget this bit. They go, no, we've got a tape, it's fine. One of the best experiences I had was an engineering firm. And they loaded the transactional data, they needed to back it up, had tape drives, did everything right. This part of it was done by the receptionist. So every day the tape was given to her, and when she went home, she put it in the car, it was off-site. So, not the best way of doing it, but again, they followed their processes. Absolutely perfect. The reason I said the air conditioning pipe earlier, because this happened to them. Air conditioning pipe popped, poured all the air conditioning water all over their exchange server. Okay, no worries. Got a new machine in, set the temperature, you can get the tape, ran to the car, brought the tape in, and it was blank. Now the reason that was, they followed their procedure, everything was fine. How did this happen? What they didn't realise is her boyfriend had installed a subwoofer in the back of her car. And if anyone knows about magnetic media and magnetic drum, they don't go together very well. So every time I got put in the boot of the car, I was just getting raised. So processes are great if you follow them, but you know everything about every factor in it. It was, I can't remember the financial organisation, I think it was Zurich got in trouble, fined something like £500,000 because they lost credit card information. And they did everything right to the level, they were really impressive. This was the Iron Mountain van. Iron Mountain van came round to their offices in London, picked up their tapes in the secure tape holders, put them in the back of the van, decided he was either going to go for a cigarette or buy a drink, left the van for 5 seconds. Some young London lad decided, that's a nice van, I'll have it, stole the van. Well, technically, yes, they can offset some of that against Iron Man and say, well, you lost it, but we all know realistically the people that stole that van weren't going after the data of a bank, they were just making a van. The tape's probably in the river somewhere. But the exposure to the organisation was, you've lost credit card information, you've lost personal information, you're going to be fined for it. And it happened a lot more than I think most people know. Data was lost more and more frequently than half of us know about. The reality was nobody knew, there was no laws in place. The laws that were in place were a bit fluffy. Now, there's a lot of pain. People get in big trouble for losing data. People are a lot more aware of their rights for their data. If you hold people's data, I think most of you all know in the room there's quite a lot of hoops you have to jump through now to maintain that. Make sure it's always up to date, make sure you don't hold anything for any longer than you need to. So again, the processes make things difficult. If you look at the history of backup, realistically, most people are around and tape backups came into fruition around the 60s and 70s. Before that, we had the nice punch cards. I'm pretty confident no one in the room has been using punch cards for a while. Then we talk about disk storage, then we talk about SANS arrays, optical storage, and now the cloud. And it just makes sense. To maintain for a medium, even large size organisation, a really high performance SAN storage device with redundancy, with security, is very expensive. And I think the key thing most people are probably here is the fact that what a council's got to do, they've got to save money on budgets. How are you going to save money on budgets? Is it implementing your entire large solutions when you're only really using a small percentage of it? No, cloud solutions make a lot more sense. And why it makes sense? Thousands of customers using one system that's constantly maintained, it's fine-tuned, it's the latest software, you don't have to keep paying for updates. This is a service, it's always working well. There's petabytes worth of storage out there. It doesn't matter if you keep growing and keep growing and keep growing. You need to make sure that's available. Now, if you've built your EMC array or something like that, and you get to that finite point where there's just not enough room in our cabinet, we're going to find another cabinet. There's no 19-inch racks don't start in small and get bigger. You have to buy another one. So whether you're only filling up a section of that with your next array, you still got to pay for it. You really decrease the backup window. Part of the big thing with cloud storage is if you look at tape backups over the years, normally you have the same data constantly back up. So each tape has the same data bar a few incremental changes. So when you talk about doing backup in the cloud, you need to make sure, as Barracuda does, that you take that data and every time you only back up incrementals. But what you can also do is compress and do single instance storage and deduplication. Now what we have, and we've been talking to people where their backup windows have gone longer than the entire time they've had before people come back into work. So they start at 9 o'clock at night, the backup starts, and people come in at 8 the next morning, the tape's still going, but they're generating more data. It hasn't finished backing up. And you'd be amazed how many organisations were in that situation. The backup's never finished. If you're only backing up what's changed, and you're doing compression, you're doing single instance storage, you're doing deduplication, you're talking about 10 meg changes probably. You know, when we look at what we're storing in the cloud, take snapshot equivalents of, I think what was the example we have, it's like 1 to 2 terabytes of storage for an organisation with 10 weeklies, 2 yearlies, 7 monthlies or whatever, equates to something like 37 terabytes worth of tapes. When you actually do that with dedupe, compression, or the rest of it, it's something around the realms of 2 to 3 terabytes in the cloud. So it's really a small amount of data compared to what you would have with tapes. And again, the managing of that. So that's sort of one example of where the cloud's going. You know, cloud storage is big, it's out there. You've got people like the Amazons of this world that will just give you that, you know, you can buy some storage or you can buy some computing. That's kind of almost hosted at that stage, even though they're calling it cloud, you know, because it's still your job to maintain it, they're just providing you something. Where else does it work? You know, where else does cloud make sense? When geographical locations are important, you know, a lot of us in organisations travel quite a bit. Now, if I need to get access to data or I need to get access to the internet all around the world, and I've got an office of 300 people in London, I'm probably not going to buy little locations all around the world just so when I'm there I have access to things. You know, most people, I know loads of people when they VPN, when they're anywhere in the world, they VPN back into their office to get their email. Now if you're in Beijing, if you're in San Francisco, places like that, why not do it locally? With data storage, backup, that kind of thing, because you can have the option of it replicated all around the world. You know, this is actually a picture of where we have our POPs, as we call them, or local breakout areas, for both backup, for web access, for all kinds of things. This is where we have them all. You know, so there's the orange ones of what's coming online very soon. But so another reason is we have what's called web filtering in the cloud URL control. Now what that means is the problem we have a lot of people, and I'm sure you guys have the same situation. When you're in your organisation, you've got rules to stop people going where they shouldn't go, downloading what they shouldn't download, protecting your network, but everyone's got a laptop now. So if I take my laptop, go down to Starbucks, I can serve whatever I want, download whatever I want, and come back in the office, and potentially I could be infected and do all kinds of nasty things on the network. But there's no way of controlling that. You know, the bottom line was, you could ring fence your organisation, but when people get out into the real world, it's a problem. You know, one of the best examples I had was this organisation said, "Yeah, we do this right. When people are in the office, there is a web filter. They get blocked from this." One of the lads was smart enough with his laptop realised, "Hang on, we're in London. There's a Starbucks below me. I'll just join their Wi-Fi. Then I can do whatever I want." And there was IT guys going, "How is he doing that?" It's just because he jumped on someone else's network. So you know that's really important. In fact, you can be anywhere. And the next one's sort of the video. You know, talking about mobile users. You've got locations in certain areas. So the mobile users, the remote telework, there's a lot more use of tablets, mobile phones, PDAs, that kind of thing. It's happening a lot more. You've got organisations around, you've got branch offices, and you've got some satellite locations. You know, as your users are going around, you know, the cost of having infrastructure in all of those locations to do all the things to make sure they're not doing anything they shouldn't, they're not downloading viruses, they're not uploading stuff, they're not proliferating spam, all of that is very expensive. And like I said, most people in the local offices or their main HQ do a reasonable job of that. But like when laptops go out and other things go out, there's a problem. Now, the biggest problem as well is if it's your organisational equipment and they start doing things that are bad, it's your organisation's problem because they're then sending spam, they're then sending emails out. But if it comes back to saying this was a local government laptop, well, you know, first of all, it's going to be in the press and people are going to start giving you a hard time of how the hell did this happen. So the cloud makes a lot of sense when you say, okay, well, no matter where you are, when you go to web filtering, you can go to a local POP, which can make a decision based on where you can and can't go. And that's our decision. So the company, who you are, have a CIO or a security officer that says, this is what people can and can't do. Now that policy is actually enforced internally. You need to make sure it's enforced externally. So those rules go anywhere in the world they go, whether they're taking a laptop, whether they're taking a PDA, whether they're working in another office, their profile follows them around. And you don't care what network they're in, whether your network or their network, completely secure. Even when they go home at night, they're still not going to browse Facebook on your laptops if you say there's no Facebook access. So another one of the areas, you know, geographical reliance is a really nice thing to have, but it's too expensive, again, for most people to have a breakout in all of those locations. You know, I don't know how much local government travels globally, probably not as much as you think, but still, when you're going into other regions as well, it still makes sense to make sure that they're not having to go all the way around the houses to get back to where they need to go. Other areas of use, email encryption. You know, a lot of people now when they're doing business need to do security. For any of you that have been in the encryption business before, you'll know, or if you've tried to do email security, key exchanging or having that trust relationship between, you know, I'm going to send emails to Mark, Kerry, things like that. We have to do something before we can send encrypted emails to each other. The organisation of that and the setting it up is an absolute pain. You know, and I've been in this industry 15 years. Originally, when the PKI world came out with public key infrastructure and things like that, it was, yeah, this is utopic, this is perfect. But actually, setting up a trust relationship between myself and Mark took a long time and a lot of effort. And again, it's another thing, security is complicated. If you can use a service that they do that, that's what they do, they spend a lot of money and time building these systems that make security and encryption right and workable, you would do it. So we found email encryption to be a big push in the cloud. People said, look, I need to be able to send an email to someone I've never met before, but it's public information, I need to make it secure, I'm going to put in the subject and words encrypted, and then I know my mail gateway is going to then make sure it's encrypted. The user themselves go through a load of challenges and then they get the email securely. Doing that originally was really painful. You know, I have to phone up Mark and say, okay, I'll send you my public key, can you send me your public key, and then we'll create a trust in our Outlook clients and everything will be fine, then I can send you a secure email. And realistically that takes too long. You know, I may be someone on the other side of the world, barely speaks enough English for me to be able to do business with, but I know I need to send them this data securely. So again, end-to-end security, doing all this is very complicated. You know, it's not the easiest thing to get done, but again, you're leveraging a cloud-based service because, again, security encryption is not easy to do. You know, you don't need to employ security specialists if you've got something in the cloud that already does it for you. Okay. And again, that's regardless of location as well. You know, it's again because you can leverage two areas in the cloud. Not only do you have the security expertise in the cloud, you've also got the geographical sparseness where it can be anywhere in the world and still work efficiently. Going back to what we originally did, email security, anti-spam and antivirus in the cloud. You know, it makes a lot of sense. You know, one of the big reasons people would put these devices in originally was because when you got spam coming in, it was chewing up your mail servers. You know, years ago, I remember having a chat with someone about that. We've got an extra 20 grand or something to buy our new Exchange server. And it was a big organisation. I was like, really? He goes, yeah, we're at 90% utilisation. We really are being killed. And I said, well, how much of your emails you're processing as spam? And he goes, oh, a huge percentage. So why don't you just stop the spam, and then your email doesn't need to process all that. Oh, yeah. So he bought, I think from us, it was a small, in relative terms for me, it was a small box from us, but it's like 5,000 users or something. So he spent, I think, £4,000 on a box to stop the spam, and then got to go back to his bosses and go, you know that 20 grand you gave me from Exchange? They went, thanks, don't need it. And, you know, that was great. And again, that's how these services can leverage it. You know, if you're doing anti-spam in the cloud, all the bandwidth of receiving the spam, filtering the spam from the CPU perspective, you know, when you get email, the emails you're then going to get are clean. It gets to your Exchange server, you go, great, I've got email now, it's only the emails I wanted, so I know the utilisation of my bandwidth, the utilisation of my mail server was optimum. It only used what it needed to use. So, you know, and that's why we've seen very successful. You know, all of this stuff, all of the content management, all of the security, all of the viruses, are all checked in the cloud and sent out. Another reason for doing things like antivirus in the cloud, everyone that's got antivirus knows they need to do an update, and a lot of times it's not convenient to do an update and all the rest of it. If you're doing it in the cloud, these servers are constantly being updated. One of the things Barracuda's always done is the three founders were a big proponent of the fact that antivirus should be free. You know, people have been making a lot of money out of viruses or antivirus for a long, long time. You know, yes, it's now only £1 a head and things like that, but it's still quite expensive. It's a big operational cost for any organisation, antivirus. So they've always said, look, antivirus is free. All of our products give away the AV side of things, you know. And we certainly found, because of where we are, because we started doing cloud things, because we've always been at the perimeter in email-based web and email-based stuff, we're catching more threats than Symantec, than McAfee, and the rest of them. If any of you want to check, there's an organisation called Virus Total, that does testing of virus vendors, we always come out on top. And it was just a byproduct. We're never trying to be an antivirus vendor, and we're not. We don't want to be an antivirus vendor. But with email-borne and web-borne threats, we're catching more in-the-wild viruses than the people that claim that's what they do for a business. And the reason for that is uniquely where you sit. So being able to catch stuff real time, being in the cloud means you're much more operational. You're seeing lots of data. Things update instantly. You don't have to wait for the next hour when your laptop updates or your server updates its virus definitions. It's always up to date. You know, viruses is such a difficult game. You know, any sort of security and protection and threat is so difficult to do. I could teach all of you in this room in about 5 minutes to build your own RAT, as it's called, the remote access Trojan. There's literally tools like Amazon you can go to and say, I want to buy this device. You then download the software, and it's literally tick boxes. I want to take control of their webcam, I want to look at their file systems, I want to know what their browser's doing, blah, blah, blah. You tick the boxes, hit compile, it creates this file. Then there's even better software where you can say, right, now I've got my remote access Trojan, I'll pump that through a bit of software that does obfuscation, which is to hide its identity. And all that does is, it changes it around, recompiles all the code, and then checks it against the top 10 virus engines to make sure it doesn't get detected. It'll take about 10 minutes to do that. And I guarantee all of you could create a virus you could send out that wouldn't be detected by the top 10 AV companies. And that's the worrying thing. It is that simple nowadays. There are tools to make people like me, like yourself, who don't really write code and do hacking and that stuff, just tick a few boxes and go compile. It's very, very simple. Luckily now, most organizations stop executable files getting in, and most users are smart enough now to go, I don't know who the person is, one, I'm certainly not going to run that executable file. But it does happen. You know, most of the spam out there is done by these remote access Trojans. They just sit there, there's tiny little TSR running on everyone's laptops. You know, how many of us, if we work in IT, have had our family go, my machine is running really slowly. You've had to go around the house and have a look and run a few scans and that stuff, because there's thousands of applications running, and you don't know what they are. So again, security in the cloud is big. It's always up to date, because it's always running live and real time, and it's an expertise that you don't have to invest in yourselves. So, you know, it's another area of what we see in the cloud. So that sort of talks about the main areas that certainly we're seeing in the cloud, and we see the way the cloud is going. Most of the analysts agree with us. You know, this is really where cloud services are going. It's sort of collaborative software, which means you guys all know Salesforce. You've heard of Salesforce? So it's an online CRM system. You know, they're the sort of prime example as SaaS, as it was called, software as a service, now cloud computing. It just makes sense. Why would you spend, and people did years ago, millions of dollars on a why would you spend millions of dollars on Oracle or an SAP system if you've only got 50 users that need to use it? Leverage the software in the cloud, use it, and make sure we use Salesforce. It's a brilliant tool. You know, we don't need to design this whole CRM system for our needs. We just use the tool. It's in the cloud that works. So I think we're going to see more of it. Hopefully I've dispelled the rumours of the security around the cloud. I say it's very interesting to see that the analysts are really saying, no, security is going to be a big factor in the cloud. You know, security and those arenas are really going to be where the cloud's going to take off. It's expensive, really expensive. Any questions? Have I bored you to tears? Did I say anything you didn't expect? Yes?
As somebody who knows very little about this area, presumably there's not just a cloud, there are lots of clouds.
Yes, and you can have your own private clouds. It's a really difficult thing to get your head around. I was desperate to try and find a way to get into my presentation, talking to some of the colleagues at work who were deciding that someone said, this cloud idea's got legs. And someone facetiously told me, says, that's a sheep, isn't it? How do I get that presentation? I couldn't find a way, but I've got it in now. But yeah, you're right. But there's no one cloud. You know, like the internet, it doesn't really. It's all owned by certain people. You know, so picking the right partners in the cloud arena absolutely makes sense. You know, you're not going to go and say, you know, we're a small organisation of 30 people and we've got a cloud. You should use it. Well, you know, SLAs and all that kind of stuff are going to be really key. You know, you need to make sure when you're talking to partners, they've got all the agreements around it saying that your data's here, your data's secure, if you're using a local access, this is all available to you. So, yeah, you're right, it's one of those things that it's not one cloud. You can even make your own cloud, organizations do. It's the concept of it being It doesn't have a presence or a geographical location. It could be anywhere. You know, it is. It's in a data center in the bottom of the vault somewhere, but that's what it is. Yeah.
Just an observation. You know, I agree with what you're saying, but it also does depend on the sort of data that you're putting out there in the cloud. But there are compliance issues, things like keeping certain levels of data within the EU or within the UK. So you need to just make sure where your data center is physically, geographically located.
Yeah.
In some instances,
That's called what do they call it? Safe harbour agreements. So yeah, absolutely. Another backup solution, and the storage stuff we have literally has a tick box. You can either keep it in the UK, keep it in Europe, or use the world. It really depends. You know, if you're using cloud storage and you don't care where it goes, you've got the redundancy of, you know, most of Western Europe could have a war, but your data's still safe in Asia or wherever. On the flip side of that, also, it's all encrypted as well. So when it leaves your area, it's all completely encrypted. We can't open it. It's government-grade encryption. But yeah, I totally hear what you're saying, which is why we give the ability to say you can use, which goes back to your order, you can use the UK cloud. It can stay just in the UK.
Are there price differentials? If you tick boxes and I want it in the UK, does that make it more expensive? Or is it?
Not as far as we're concerned.
Yeah.
But again, you know, your mileage may vary. It depends who you're working with, really. But no, to us, we don't care. You know, and that's the beauty of it. You know, when you're paying for storage, the fact it's replicated 3 times over, for us is a cost, because we've got to store your data 3 times or 4 times, or wherever you're allowing it to go, to give you that kind of redundancy. But you're not getting charged for that. So that's the key thing. You know, things we've found recently where we've really helped people out. They'd used a backup, and then someone in the IT department had gone and changed their retention policies. And it meant that they only kept data for about 6 days or something. And what happens is we say, okay, you change your retention policy, we get you, as of tomorrow when the next backup cycle starts, we'll purge off your data. We don't, because we've got a lot of storage in the cloud. So when the IT guys are phoning us up crying, going, I've really screwed up, I need this data back, we're like, yeah, no problem. We haven't deleted it, we just tell you it's going to get deleted, we turn it back on. You know, that's just a luck byproduct, but realistically, you know, that's the beauty of having things in the cloud. You've got that ability. Yes.
That's the same point, really. We use the cloud quite a bit, and on a lot of issues, this particular Amazon's cloud, we're not using, where we had to keep pieces of data within the EU. But we were able to do that by choosing the servers, by choosing from watersheds to keep our data centers. But yeah, it was the same point, essentially.
Can I jump in and ask, and this is probably you educating me more than the other way around, I met a head of IT for a large county council client of ours recently, and he was quite firm in regards to the legislation in this area and the fact that you can host whatever data you want in the cloud, but it just comes down to you have to accept the risk. Now, I don't know if your opinions or experiences vary from that. Is there firm legislation stating you have to do this level of encryption in this area of Europe or the world, depending on what impact level the data is? Or is it just a case of accepting the risk and saying we're going to host it in the cloud, and if anything goes wrong, we'll put our hands up in the air? What's your...
My understanding, I've not been challenged on this at all, but is that if it's above impact level 3, I might be wrong, my assumption is that, or understanding is that it has to be stored within the EU.
IL3 and above, or IL4 and above?
IL3 and above. Okay. That's my understanding. I might be wrong, which you can explain, but that's
So
my
anyone,
understanding from COCO assessments.
anyone else have an opinion? Or
I was going to ask you the opposite question actually, which is, you know, what are there any national certifications that are almost a tick in a box for us? You know, this supplier has got such and such a certification, that means I'm part of that issue, and I can move on.
so similar to, like, you know, you're buying a remote access system, is it FIPS approved, for example? Is it a tick box like that? Okay.
Yeah. Yes and no, really. That someone has to make the decision, certainly at a government level, that this meets our requirements. You know, we've tried to build our systems to be as secure and optimum as they can be. So like I said, when data is stored, certainly from a backup solution to our cloud stuff, we actually provide there's a box that sits at your location, which does all the deduplication and the compression and the encryption. So when it gets to us, it's just a blob of data. In theory, there's nothing we can do with it, unless you decide to access it because you have the encryption keys. There's levels we've certainly seen, not with local government, but with, you know, military and other government, where they're saying, okay, it'd be really nice if, we know we've got the encryption key on our device, but it is in software, it's just a key that's there. Can we use things like USB tokens that are FIPS approved and fully secure, and we know that key never leaves our organisation? So there's levels of that we've decided, yeah, we can do that, that's no problem. So we will go along that lines as well. But really, I think it comes down to yourselves to come to us and say, look, we all got together with our local authorities, and this is what the minimum requirements are. You know, AES 256-bit encryption is as good as it gets. You know, there's more atoms in the world than the amount of guesses it would take to get it right if you've got the key length that's the right sense. You know. The funny thing about encryption always is, as I used to doing it for a long time, was you can guess the key right the first time. It's very unlikely, but you could get it right the first time. You know, it's a very, very big number. So, you know, it's very secure. But again, someone has to say, yes, that's enough, we all agree there. And we're happy to work with local authorities or any government and say, what more can we do to make it a tick box so you can go and say, right, we've done this, everyone's agreed, this is the level of security we need, so you can all comfortably go and use a service that makes sense. What does Amazon provide on the S3 network? Is there anything like that?
We're not using that sense, if you know what I mean. So we might have, but I don't know. Right. And to give you an illustration for your question, previously, because we're only shipping data out, personal information we keep on our own hosted services, and then the data says we're not putting personal information out to the cloud. So there's a separation of data. So in that sense is what we try to attain. But that's mainly it just gets us around having to focus too much on the security aspect.
So things like IL3 would keep, like the crown jewels, would keep locally, but the massive other data you push out to the cloud. Which is sensible. So I think it doesn't matter what level of encryption there is and whether people from COCO or central government or whatever say, yeah, that's absolutely fine. There is obviously a concern when you have got that most sensitive data out in the wild. So that seems like a good balance.
I mean, our choice of technology is based on first to market, which is in the cost review. Yeah. So it is, like you said, this whole landscape is changing, and it's getting much more mature. What you're describing here is a much more mature vision of the cloud, which I think is very encouraging.
Yeah, I think, like you're right, it's interesting. The first to market thing is, I saw an analyst when I was living in the States. There's an analyst that once said to me, the first to market is always the wrong person. Which is interesting. Anyone remember Lycos? Web search engine Lycos? It's a fantastic device. They did it phenomenally well. Died on their ass. Why? It was a great tool. They were the first to market. No one had really adapted to it yet. People weren't using it for that. Strange things. The way everything evolved is very strange. Does anyone know what Amazon used to be called before it became Amazon as the shop? I normally have some freebies to give away, but if anyone knows this. So Amazon originally was called Cadabra.com. That's what the people came up with. Why do you think they called it Amazon?
Oh no, I'm putting my hand up for something.
Okay. It went from Cadabra.com to Amazon because the biggest search engine at the time was Yahoo. And it wasn't, as Google is now, who pays the most to come to the top of the list. It was alphabetically the top. Amazon comes to the top, so they changed their name. So again, it's the whole world of IT changes every 5 minutes. So, but getting it right first time is normally very, very rare. We've certainly, like I said, when I showed you the slide about what we've been doing in cloud services, we don't call it cloud services. That was the right way to do what we wanted to do. And I get the whole using and sharing tools. Economically it makes sense for any organisation. From an environmental, it makes sense because you haven't got a machine that's sucking up just as much power and you're not using it, as opposed to just using it in the cloud. So it's all good from any perspective how it works. There's just it's ironing out the kinks of what makes sense for people to use it. And one of the things we talked about just a minute ago, in the backup solution, what you said, we have the option on our backup solution to tick a box saying this part of the data I'm backing up only stays in the local box. You also have the ability to then have a second box in your own DR site and say, okay, everything else replicates to the cloud, but this replicates to this box here. So there are, we've certainly seen, and we've evolved our solution to realise that some people have said, look, there's certain data I cannot leave my organisation. It's really important to me. The amount I would be fined would put me out of business if I didn't keep it inside. So that's a good question.
Yeah, just wondering what the implications were for shared services of cloud computing. Does it help it? Could it help?
The whole thing is about shared services realistically. Cloud computing, that most of the stuff that's being used in the cloud is using, like the Salesforce terminology. It's a very well-developed, constantly updated bit of software that you get to use a portion of. So, yeah, absolutely. That's the main benefits of cloud computing, apart from having security people dealing with the security side of things, the software is constantly updated. You don't have to go and buy Office 2010 now because it's better. You've always got it, and you always had it. You had Office 99, 2000. You didn't even know, but as you're using cloud services, it just gets better. So, and that's kind of the thing I think with the shared services, because everyone's sharing it. You buy something that's much cheaper for one, and those services get better, and you don't have to then keep buying the upgrade. It's just the service you're providing.
Can I ask the question you just asked? Were you trying to understand if this was a technology that could resolve a business requirement, but you could benefit from economies of scale by working in a more partnership approach with your local council colleagues?
Yeah, well, I was just wondering what, I mean, if there's a trend towards cloud computing, what implications it would have for councils looking to share services with other councils?
Yeah.
Does it make it easier? Does it make it harder?
It should be easier.
It should, does it? I don't know.
PSN will make it easier eventually.
I think you're right, and I'll be honest, I don't know exactly what's around the corner with regards to PSN. Hopefully, I think it's still categorised as IL2, so hopefully the belt's going to be loosened a little bit. What we've been doing at Sensio has been, we've been meeting with groups of councils to try and understand where they have a shared requirement. So, for example, IT health checks, everyone's got very similar requirements. Some will need to do PCI DSS testing, some won't. Some will have 20 public-facing IP addresses, some will have 30, whatever it might be. But by bringing people together to make a shared commitment, they can get an obvious economy of scale. Similarly, from a technology perspective, if there's groups of councils, because I presume you all have IT manager meetings, IT director shared meetings, if there's an opportunity where you guys are going to come together and see a shared requirement, then certainly ourselves and Barracuda are happy to sit down, discuss these different technology areas, and then obviously there would be sort of cost savings for more people looking to utilise the service at the same time. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it's sort of it's an evolutionary process, really. If it makes sense, a lot of people buy a service and they like the fact that in that service is ring-fenced, that's your bit, and no one else can get to it. If it makes sense to have a bigger fence that goes, but this is a local authority organisation, you can all share information. That certainly seems clear. The police force for years have had all these problems, they cannot share information. Simply because infrastructure, security, and the rest of it, it's really expensive and really costly. Someone's got to figure it all out, and someone's got to maintain it. And quite frankly, I want my police force policing, not worrying about IT budgets and IT side of things. So, I think going forward, we're going to see those cloud-based services really leverage each other. You might find eventually you're going to get local authority clouds. Whether they use someone else to get that, you might find that there is this local authority cloud, there is a MOD cloud, there is this, that they can share services that way.
There's a very big expectation on the other side that we're very open with people. Is there a possibility of being able to allow access to files just generally
Absolutely,
if you choose to do so?
The technology of the cloud can absolutely do that. That's the whole point of it, is it doesn't matter where it is. If you decide that this is a public domain document or this isn't, you can do it that way. So yeah, it's the right tool for that. It's basically, in essence, when you're sharing it, that's just like having a document on your website. It's the same thing that you're providing those services. The e-government stuff is quite a big good incentive, I think. But yeah. Any other questions? Thank you. Hopefully it was really useful. Hopefully you learned something. Enjoy the rest of your day.